beat him to
I think you
the
can watch it
Yeah.
live on
1%
YouTube.
no.
Yeah.
And we
I know,
had,
I voted no.
On the city side, it'll take you there.
Okay.
We gotta put that on.
We're good? We all
But can we
started?
do any spot spray up there so nothing else falls?
We're good?
Okay, we're live now, so.
Yeah. All right, everybody, I'm going to call our meeting to order, and our first item of business will be to approve the May 5th minutes, since that is the last time we were able to meet.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? There's so many new faces here. Can we introduce everybody?
Sure.
I don't know two people, so.
Yeah, I'll
So
make
we'll start maybe with Mr. McNeil.
Yes, I'm Ray McNeill. Moved down here from Virginia back in 2005. Prior service, retired government employee, 30 years. Background as far as aviation, like I was joking with the other members here. Military, jumped out of planes, parachute rigger. So,
Okay, great.
been around planes quite a bit, inside and out.
Well, good. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Some of you guys know me, but for those of you that don't, I'm Kelly O'Donnell, and I fly out of the Airpark and out of PIE, and currently finishing up my instrument and commercial certificates and rating, and I am invested in the Airpark. I live right down the street from it, and I've been flying out of there for probably almost 5 years now, so.
I'm George Davis. I represent the neighborhoods. I'm not a pilot. My father flew B-24s World War II and flew until he was 72. My brother, who is a couple of years younger than I am, still flies. He flies out of Albert Whitted. He flies, want to run my thoughts, Pilatus 12s, frightening airplane. I am familiar with aviation because of those two and flying all over the state to the islands and back with my brother. We have actually flown because I live in the neighborhood and he lives down in St. Pete. For instance, if we're going to Key West, he'll fly up here. And so we don't have to drive down there and park the car. We just go over to the Airpark. He comes in, picks us up, and we go down to the Keys. So we've done that several times. I'm familiar with it. I represent the neighborhood. I think the best way to say it is there is a pretty good truce between the ducks in the neighborhood that are quacking all the time and the current operation. The last change of the helicopter routes, approaches, and takeoffs was a big help for us. We're at the south end of the Airpark, and all of a sudden the helicopter noises went away. I guess they rerouted it up north. However, this last weekend I noticed we had, it must have been a student. Usually you can spot them because they come in and they're a little wobbly and up and down. So he was practicing approaches from the south end, and because of the cold weather, it was a little bit noisy and it made it hard to see if the Braves were going to win or lose. But overall, I think it's good. It's all going pretty well. So
Okay, great.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I'm Roger Schulman. I lived in Clearwater since 1972. I got out of the military, I was overseas, came here. My parents had retired here, and I said, this is a lot better than Illinois, where I used to live. So stayed since then. Always been interested in aviation, in and out of the military, and have flown in just about everything that does fly except a glider. And I've always been interested in aviation, and I'm fascinated by it. That's basically why I'm here.
Hi, Bruce Brock. I'm the ex officio member because I don't live in the city limits of Clearwater. Retired airline pilot, started flying in 1969. Still fly an RV-7, and retired Air Force reservist as well. So I have some military ties too, and I have been on this board for about 7 years, I think, when I had to resign for moving out, and then was able to pick up the other side. So I have
Okay, and for the new members, I'm Ed Chesney. I'm the city's Marine and Aviation Director, so I will act as your liaison for the board. And then behind me, we have,
I'm Mike Mcneill, I'm the operations manager for the department, and I manage the lease with Ford.
and then we have here.
Bart Cooper, the FBO manager.
Okay, great. A lot of new faces. So I just wanted to go through that before we got lost in the shuffle there. So thank
Yes,
you,
thanks.
Kelly.
Thank you, Ed, for bringing that up. So, okay, so now we can go back to the agenda item of approving the minutes from the May meeting. Let's see if anybody had any edits that needed to be made.
No, motion to
Nope,
approve.
so yeah, so someone make a motion,
Approve.
okay? And second?
Second.
Okay,
Aye.
yep, all in
The
favor?
ayes have it.
Aye, yep.
You can't, no. You can comment, yep.
Okay, we do not have any citizens here to be heard, so we will go to our new business item of our FBO update from Barb.
Okay, I'm just going to give the, report about what's happening at the Airpark. All the hangars continue to be rented, and we continue to grow the hangar list, even though I let people know that it's years and years out. I guess a lot of people are relocating to Florida, particularly to Pinellas County. We also have a lot of people buying airplanes these days, and I had 4 calls today for hangars.
Really?
Yep, every day. I get between 3 and 5, sometimes more. And they understand, I mean, there's only 3 airports, us, St. Pete, Clearwater, and Albert Whitted, and there are no hangars available anywhere. And I've sent a lot of people over on the other side of Tampa, but I understand they're pretty full too, so. There's a significant need for hangars in Pinellas County, that's for sure. As far as business goes, since the rainy season ended, we've been super busy. You were there the other day. He saw how busy it was, and that wasn't even during a busy time, so you can
I was
imagine.
amazed.
Yeah, he was amazed how busy we were. And it's amazing how well everything, just runs, so very good. And wanted to mention that the Young Eagles had a successful rally on October 16th, and they had one this summer as well. Bruce
That's
will
right.
probably talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then just this past Friday, the FAA safety team, it's called the FAST safety team, they have meetings different places. They had one at our FBO. We planned to have it outside, but Friday night the wind and the rain pushed everybody inside. So they had about 45 to 50 people attend, and they had a really nice meeting. So that was nice. And I just wanted to mention that we are not planning on having our annual Christmas party again this year just because of COVID concerns, and we really pack people into the FBO, and we just don't think that's wise yet. So that's really all I had, unless anybody has any questions for me.
I have a couple of things, not necessarily questions, but in thinking of some different things that may help the Airpark, I was wondering, and Ed told me you'd be the one to talk to, what would be the possibility of getting some recycling containers at the Airpark, so if people are changing oil, they could put their empty oil containers
Okay,
in
well,
recycling,
I
or
mean, as
just,
far as recycling cardboard and that's already down by the dumpster.
okay,
As far as oil changes, you can check with Jeff Bender down at Bender Aviation Services. He's got, you have to put that in an official container. And then there's a company that comes and pumps that out. And he's got a huge container there. And
I don't mean actual oil itself, I mean like an empty oil, if someone's just topping off oil and they have the empty oil.
that can just be put in the trash, but I could look into if there's, if that's a recyclable item. I doubt it with the oil inside it.
Well,
Yeah,
it
and-
is,
Is it? Okay.
but you gotta take it to Discount Auto or somewhere. They have a tank in the back, you just pour it in there.
Right.
At the marina, I worked out there as a captain for 15 years, my second career. When we did oil changes on the diesels, they allowed us to put it in, there was one big thing there, container, and it had to be double bagged. and you had to put absorbent pads in the bottom of the bags, and then you could pour the oil in there, seal it up, double bag, and put it in that one collective spot. But
Yeah, I guess I could look into it with solid waste. I'm not sure what the.
Yeah, and I
thing is
didn't
on
know
that, Because
enough
I know
about it
that,
either.
you know, as far as the used oil goes, you have to dispose of
Yeah.
that properly, and Jeff does
Yeah.
have a big container for that, and he gets it taken out properly, so.
Maybe I'm done doing it wrong. I just took 9 oil quart containers home with me and threw them in recycle. I just put them in the back of the car and take them home.
Right, I know
I mean,
we
they're empty.
have about 4 recycle bins out there right now
Yeah.
for cardboard, but we could look into getting more, you know, as far as other.
Yeah, I was just thinking specific to like a used oil. I mean, luckily you take yours home, but I
Yeah,
bet
most
there's a
people don't.
lot of people that just
I know
throw
I'm
it in the
an
trash.
outlier on that.
Yeah. And so I had heard of another incident of where a wingtip hit one of the training plane propellers, and this was something I was going to bring up at the last meeting. So now it's been months ago that happened. So one of the archers was down, having to get an engine tear down. So I was wondering, because I know when I did my training there, that was always an issue going through in front of the FBO, if we could look into something as far as expanding the parking pads so planes could be parked further back, or if even wheel marks could be painted on there that were far enough back to prevent.
Well,
you know,
that
possible
incident that happened was a transient that came up there in the dark and didn't know where he was going and didn't ask for any assistance, and that's what happened.
And
It-
I'm sure that happened, but I'm just trying to think proactively, because I
Right,
know
and-
that it's happened previously as
Exactly,
well.
and I do know that on the master plan, that whole area is in a redesign. When that's gonna come to fruition, Mike could talk about that. Just needs to be widened out. You can't go further back because, going west, because that's a detention pond back there.
Yeah,
And then if you bring them this way, then that's going to eliminate the one other row that's out there. So we do have everybody pushed back as far as possible. And usually when it happens, it's a transient, so I was going to talk to Mike and Ed about possibly getting some more signage out there that directs people to the ramp. They see the planes parked there, and I guess they assume that's parking, and then they come up in there and don't realize how narrow it is, so.
yeah, and I know that was in the master plan, but I'm wondering if even something as simple as just painting like a front tire mark or something so that people know for sure how far to push back the planes, because
that could be done,
I've
sure.
seen different distances all the time. I don't think people really are looking to say, this is how far back I need to get the plane when I'm pushing it back. They kind of just, it's in the spot. And whether it's really back
Yeah, that's a
far or
good
not, you know. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up, I know of at least one public comment we got about unleaded gas again at the Airpark, and I don't know if you've had any more updates.
Yeah,
I know
I've
you had
had
looked
a
into
lady
it.
writing me about that. That, again, I spoke with Ed and Mike about that. Our fuel supplier is working with companies to bring that to fruition. That's gonna take a couple years. I know she's asking about this other product called, I can't remember the name of it right now. There's only 2 airports in the whole state of Florida, public use airports, that have it. She mentioned a bunch of other airports which happen to be private airports. Swift Fuel, I think
Yes,
it's
with
called.
the-
It's quite more expensive than regular avgas, so that would be something we'd have to work with the city, because you'd have to install another fuel farm tank and all that, so.
This other, AOPA magazine, a couple months ago, just had an update on that GAMI GU 100 that is very promising. I don't know if it's gonna come to fruition,
I
but
got a big, long thing from our fuel supplier and sent it on to Ed, and,
that one looked very promising, right?
right, and that is actually gonna replace the avgas.
Yeah.
And from what they told me, we will be able to use our existing avgas fuel,
facility.
fuel tank, farm for that.
That
Okay.
would help.
So that's
Yeah.
what will happen
Transition
in the
through.
future. We might be looking at a couple years out. So it's on the agenda, because it is gonna be something that's gonna replace avgas across the board, so. But, there's a lot that goes into that, because there's all these old airplanes out there, and they have to make sure that those airplane engines aren't gonna detonate and, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of testing that goes into that before they can put it into use.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it would be something that until that, you know, requirement to change to the unleaded, if the Airpark would look into having, you know, that Swift and the low lead, and, or
But,
are
you
we
know,
just gonna
there's,
kind of
there's a
wait?
lot that goes into that, rather than just saying, sure, we can do that, you know.
No, I know, that's,
know,
I just
it's-
wasn't sure if there's
Yeah,
any
we've
other.
discussed it, it's just not something we're gonna do just right now, so,
Okay.
okay?
You know, and just to add to that point too, this is something that comes up a lot because, you know, the air park is not run by the city owns it. So the FBO leases it, so we cannot encumber their lease by asking them to change things because we want it. You know, we lease it to them, the lease conditions are there, we work with them, you know, new products come out, new innovation comes out, it takes time to switch over. It's not like the city where we could just say, oh, the city's gonna do this is great, we wanna do it. But we have a lease with them and they're not obligated to do it. So I think they're open to do a lot of things. So we have to be mindful of that when we recommend things to the city, that we have to include the FBO as well. That's why I wanted Barb to address these things, because we can't recommend something to the city that we have not actively discussed with the FBO. So this is a good discussion there. So then we can all be in sync on that.
I have a question. I noticed in there was a budget change, and the public notice was in the paper, and I was reading it. And evidently, the city budget was readjusted to cover some down shortage here on the waterfront. And one of the deletions was about $200,000 that was earmarked for the Airpark.
I
So
don't know
were you-
anything about that.
I was gonna say
It
with the-
wasn't, it was not deleted, it was pushed out. There was $250,000 or $275,000
yeah.
for a construction project that the DOT has pushed out into the future, so we had to move the money in line with when it would come into play. For example, that was for a new FBO building. So that's a project that I think is in 26, 27.
The design work with that
You need to
$200,000 would be is,
Michael.
sorry. That design work, which is gonna be in 25, was probably that 200,000, and that's for the design work, and then the construction, we're looking at 27 for the construction of it.
So when we have our 5-year CIP projects with the city funds all those projects and gets all the grants. So we had that in within the 5-year CIP for next year, I think. And then when we readjusted all of our DOT grants, that got moved 2 years out. So that was what they were saying. They were just, that money is encumbered by the city, so we encumbered it, pushed it out 2 years, but it's not lost.
Okay, I understand that, and it was not explained that way. Matter of fact, it was the last entry on about 7 entries of reductions that were in the approved budget that were being changed and put into the pile down here on the waterfront. So, I mean, was it just coincidental that the DOT pushed it out?
Yes, that had been pushed out over 2 years ago when we redid
I
our,
just now got a notice of it, and she's just now hearing of it?
well, it really didn't affect Barb. I mean, it's a CIP project for the city, and it's a grant that we work with. And during COVID, nothing moved, so everything was stagnant for a year. And then when we met with them and redid our priorities, we moved that ahead because there's other things we need to do, taxiways, pavement, things that were more important than that. Not more important, but not as important.
Things change.
And then with the budget thing, if you listen to the whole budget discussion, it was neutral. Nothing was added or lost from the budget. It was just moved and shifted. So that's why they have to do that, and that's penny money.
Part of what was on our table got moved, so that's why I asked.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm glad you did, because most people aren't that observant. But, yeah, it's penny money, the penny tax money. And whenever that money is moved in excess of a certain threshold, it has to be to a public meeting like that. So even though it was money lost, not lost or gained, it was shifted, so we have to, as part of that budget amendment.
Yeah.
So,
And the Airpark's an enterprise fund, So the Airpark is an enterprise fund.
Yeah.
So when we do these projects, it's out of our reserves. It's not a part of the general fund. So the city wouldn't give us $200,000 for a project. So like he said, it's penny money. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So we had kind of, Barbara just wanted to make sure you were done with the fixed-based operator, but I think you're back up here again to do the Hangar C project, or was that
Mike,
city?
that's me.
Mike, okay.
So, as you guys have been out to the airport, and you can see that hangar's coming along nicely, it's up. We've had a couple hiccups in some of the coding. One thing that we had to do is we had to go back to the state and ask for some more money in a grant for a fire extinguisher, or I'm sorry, for a hydrant system. The fire department wanted us to loop it. So we've done that, and then we had to do the directional bore, so I'm sure you guys saw that, because originally they were gonna cut out the taxiways, and we're like, no. So we have the fire hydrant in. I don't think the hydrant's in yet, but the line's in. And then also on the hangars itself, as Brock has brought to my attention, the bathrooms are on that east side of the hangar, and Brock's like, why are we doing that? We got one just,
Yeah.
20 feet away from that one. Well, it's because of the gravity feed for the plumbing. It wouldn't have reached that west side. And to code, we had to have a bathroom, but now we have to have 2 bathrooms. So there'll be 2 bathrooms on that side. And then also now on the back side of the T hangar, you'll see another egress door. So they're requiring another door, so we had to get some engineering drawings put in for that. So we're about a month behind now. We're still looking towards the end of November to getting that thing back open and operational.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, with all the interest in hangars, is there room to put more in if the demand is there?
There is in the master plan, and I think the first one comes in the intermediate, which would be the 5 to 15 years, I do believe. And that's going to be another commercial hangar. There's been some discussion about another T hangar north of A hangar that will run perpendicular to the hangars that are there. And so we'll cross that bridge in about 5 to 10 years.
So the open grass space at the south end of the last T hangar, is that where?
Yeah, but it would have to run north and south, not east and west, just because of the runway.
Good.
So,
I had some other comments I wanted to make about the hangar, and I don't know if right now would be a good time to do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. First on the list, and I wanted to say, whatever I say here is solely to improve the process. I'm not trying to pick on the system or anything else, but just to learn for the future if we can. Number one, of course, was the bathrooms next to each other. I had a feeling there might be a technical reason that, and because we end up with the eye wash stations right next to each other, same thing. The bathroom's going to be good for me, but it just seemed a little funny. We're kidding the plumbers that we put a change order in. We want a hot tub and a shower put in the ladies' room because we don't need 2 of them anyway. But now the one comment I will that I think is a significant one, and it has to do with the drains, which I presume are a code issue.
yes.
What scares me about drains, and I know Barb is probably going to back me up on this, is you give somebody a drain, he's going to pour his oil in it, or God forbid, gasoline got in it. And
Absolutely.
In 100 Lowland, I'd really rather gasoline leak onto the ramp. I mean, on the cement floor, because it evaporates in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes anyway, and it's gone. But the tank, I take this as a really, to be honest, a serious suggestion. I read the label on the side of this tank that they took 3 weeks trying to get it in the ground. It's a 1,000-gallon tank, holds 347 gallons of oil. If there's 10 airplanes in the hangar, there's about 10 gallons of oil in the entire hangar. It's just overkill. I don't know how it had to be that big. And I'd like to think the next hangar, if it has to have the drains, fine. can't keep the size. It drove the plumbers crazy trying to get that thing in the ground.
Same thing, it's a code issue, and I can let Ed explain the oil separators.
I mean, it is an oil-water separator,
Yeah.
so the size of it, you know, they size, you know, you put a restroom, and we put a restroom at our dockmaster's office down at the waterfront, and it was sized for 50 people, you know, and there's 2 people working in there, so we had to put a new wet well in. So it's just, you know, water running, all 10 people in all the hangars flushing at the same time, all 4 restrooms in use. It just, it
I mean,
really
that's
is
the
the
part that drives
capacity.
you crazy about codes, because just like this, we have the 4 restrooms now. It's still the same number of people flushing the toilet. It hasn't changed any, you know. I use your keys, by the way, I unlock the door all the time. Yeah, so I want them for the new hangars too. Okay, anyway, if there's, I mean, the plumbers told us that they originally had 100 gallons specified, and then it, somewhere along the way, got changed to 1,000 gallons, and it really was difficult for them to get it in the ground.
Well, the
I mean,
plumbers
we
didn't
was-
specify anything.
No, they didn't
were
specify, they said they
design-
specified.
They bid on a design,
yeah.
so they might have thought it should be 100 gallon, but
Well, I don't know, I'm just going by what.
I'm, you know,
You know,
Bruce, I get it, I'm in.
You know what I'm talking
I
about.
know how these code issues are.
Yeah. Then you know, the hot water thing, that's
I'm-
probably a code thing again, you know, I'm amazed we have to have hot water. You know, the escape doors, interesting, it's a shame, obviously that got kind of added on afterwards because the building wasn't designed for it. It's a shame they can't put a escape hatch in that wouldn't have to cut so much structure, you know, just something you could get out of, but I'm sure that's not possible. And the sidewalks, Wayne said that's not in the plan right now. All the other hangars, if you remember, D hangar got the sidewalks, and then at one of these board meetings said, that's a great idea, why don't they all have it? And we added it to all the other hangars.
Yeah, the sidewalk's supposed to be in the plan.
Yeah, well, Wayne's saying today, no, that's not in our plan, and so I just thought I'd bring it up. They're not sure they know about it, so I'm sure you're on top of that. So, and then my last comment was just, you know, maybe the next conceptual hangar, you know, maybe we can see it at a board meeting, you know, maybe make a suggestion that might be able to be encompassed, maybe not, you know. So I know the code thing is, I know that's a big deal, and I know it's not easy to work with, but just wanted to pass those on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all? Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
And then Ed, I guess you're back up for the director's report.
Yeah, if you'll remember, those that were here, you know, we meet quarterly, so this is only our 2nd meeting of the year. So in January was the first meeting of the year where we elected our chair and vice chair. We went over our schedule for the year, our dates, you know, it's just that housekeeping thing. But at that first meeting, we had selected our month for the presentation to the city council. So we had that discussion. So we meet in November, so we selected November 18th, which is the first meeting following our meeting. So on November 18th, our chair, Kelly, unless she can't do it, is to speak before the city council at their 6 p.m. meeting.
And I'm glad you're bringing this up because that was on my list to bring up. I wasn't sure if we were still doing it because
We are still doing
we
it.
have
So
not really had very much that has gone on since
So
we were
what-
gone.
So what we did, and well, I'll get back to my microphone, but
Oh, you can lean there, you can talk there.
what we did was, this is our meeting minutes, a summary of our meeting minutes, and this is our board, advisory board, ordinances and stuff like that. Let me pass this out, because I can't talk and walk at the same time. So that's just a brief summary of what we discussed at those 2 meetings. And then this is our advisory board rules and regulations. Patty wants one before she asks me for it. So what the reason for this, and all advisory boards are scheduled once a year to go before city council, and it's their face time with the council to talk about their year or near year with the board, what their accomplishments were, what their mishaps were, anything in that nature. So it's your opportunity to talk about the board, to talk about the Airpark, to talk about your role, and then that's why I gave you our, what we call the Airpark Advisory Board Division 2. That is, each board has a separate thing. So your powers and duties, and it says here, the Airpark Advisory Board may initiate studies and make recommendations on the operation and maintenance of the Airpark to City Council, and shall be responsive to the City Council on Airpark matters referred to the board by City Council. And that's what we're doing here, but the reason I brought this up earlier, was written in 1980. This is when the Airpark was the city's to operate and maintain. Well, for the last 20-some years, it's been leased out to an FBO. So that's why I said when we make recommendations about the Airpark, we've got another layer to deal with, which is the FBO. So the Airpark board, as created, doesn't anticipate a lease situation. It's like any of our other parks and rec facilities. You know, you're at the parks and rec, the city runs all the parks. We don't lease any of those out. So the library, they're all city libraries. We don't lease them out. So when these boards were all created, they were all city facilities. So it just came to light to me this week that this board is kind of odd in the same sense that we have the same types of boards for something that we don't completely control. Mm-hmm. It's leased out. It's something that we're hands-off, if you will, other than owning it. So think about that, and think about that, Kelly, when you're thinking about things to discuss with the board. So what I wanted to do for the rest of today was for you guys to discuss what you think is necessary, and everybody's invited to the meeting. I don't think everybody always can make it or can come, but it is this the 18th at 6 p.m. It'll just be a brief presentation at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if there's there might be another board there that evening as well.
City council meeting? Then?
City council meeting. And then you're just recognized if you're there, but Kelly, as the chair, would be the one that would speak on everybody's behalf. So that's why today I wanted you guys to talk about things, and then Kelly will put together an agenda, not an agenda, but her talking points, and then I can share, she'll send that to me, and then throughout the next week and a half, I can share it back and forth with the board. And, you know, we're really not, well, we're not supposed to be communicating individually. You have to go through the liaison. So that's why I wanted to give you the minutes today so you could talk about them, what we've done this year in only 2 meetings, and then our powers and duties and how we best put our best foot forward at that 18th meeting. Because the council will be interested. There's new members on the council that haven't been around and don't know the Airpark history or the, you know, what the board does. It's the first time that since I've been liaison that this board will make such a presentation. Yes.
I've asked the question a couple of times here. Kelly doesn't know and Patricia doesn't know. If citizens have ideas about the Airpark or complaint or a suggestion and they send an email to the city, where can we find that and see that? So we're apprised of it.
If they send an email to the city,
I can probably comment on that. Because I have done it myself for our neighborhood. When you go into the website and it says problems or suggestions, when they submit it, you have an option to where it could be public information or to go directly to that division of the city. So if the people are not, you know, saying it's public, it's going to be kind of, you can't see it. And if it goes directly to that division, then if it's Parks and Recreations or Marine or whatever, or the aviation park, then that's probably going to be the only way we're going to be able to see it. And that division will have to let us know, hey, we
If
received
it's
it.
addressed to the city, it becomes public record.
On their website, you have an option to make it public or private. If it goes private, it goes directly to whoever receives that for that division of the city. So,
well, yeah, and there's several ways you can call the city. You can call the city by phone, which is not the best way because, you know, you get shuffled around. Yeah. So if you go to like the people stuff online, you know, you can pick the department you want to comment, And you can be, I think what you're maybe alluding to is you can be anonymous if you want to. You can click that. You can make your thing public. And then, you know, it's directed to the, okay, you're complaining or you're saying something good about something, then it'll go to the department that deals with that. And then we fill out the response and reply to it. And that person, if they leave an email address, it goes right back to them. And it is all public in that sense that anybody that knows that, how to use that system, you can go in there and read everybody who's got their grasses too tall and who's got an expired tag on the car out in front of their house. And, I mean, it's all in there. And it goes back month after month. The history is always there.
I think what he's
So,
alluding to
we-
is something that I've brought up before, that I feel that there's a disconnect still between this board and the council and, you know, community input like this. Like, we're not being made aware of different concerns or emails that are coming in, that it's something that we'd be able to discuss as a board. And so I know I had that lady that reached out to me originally about the fuel issue, and I think people are just going to the website and, oh, who are board members, let me just contact. So not necessarily are they going through the actual public comment route. But since there is a public comment route, and this was going to be one of my next topics that I wanted to bring up, that I do think that that's something important, that if it is Airpark related, that it should be shared with the board members so that we can just be aware of what people are saying.
Well, I think the last meeting, you'll remember, I brought that issue when somebody wrote a letter about the helicopters.
Yeah.
And our rules, you know, that was something that came in, and that really rose to the level of the board. If somebody had a complaint that Easter Sunday there was an airplane flying over their house, I'm not sure that that's something that the board needs to know in real time. So I don't know how to answer that. I mean, if you're saying that anytime there's a Airpark related question or comment, we should save those and bring them as to the agenda item, or do you want them in more real time, monthly or weekly, or just whenever you get one?
Well, let's have a board discussion about that. Do you guys have a preference? I mean, I'd be fine just getting it before the meeting, like with maybe the meeting agenda,
Yeah.
just to be aware, but
Go over.
Just curious, how many contacts from the general public does Marine and Aviation get associated with the aviation?
Not many,
Not too many, right?
not too many.
So,
And usually if we do, it's the same person. I mean, to be honest, it is. It's always, there's one or two people that they go through, you know, cycles of, you know, oh, I'm on this, you know, I have this issue, so they bring it up and up again. But we haven't had any Easter, that's why I brought up Easter. That was the last time somebody had made a comment that the airport was open on Easter, which was odd to them, that they were flying on Easter when most people are at church or enjoying their Easter baskets. But if you're not at church and enjoying your Easter baskets, you're at the Airpark.
must be on the ground.
Just
Yeah,
speaking from experience on past boards, citizen input was vibrant. And if there were, you know, emails concerning the environment, for instance, on the Environmental Advisory Committee, we got those ahead of time. And probably they were edited, I don't know, but if it looked significant, we got them so that they could be a part of the agenda, and we could consider them, and we knew what the citizens of the city were thinking about environmentally, or penny for Pinellas, or all the rest of it.
Well, that's certainly a good
we're-
topic.
We're asking for it, and I guess we're asking for it because we don't know what's there, and we can't find it. So now I know how to find it, and I'll go look and read them, and maybe,
Yeah, if it turns out it's the sort of thing I could review, what issues were there before a meeting, you know, maybe that's the solution.
And when they do come in, we respond to them, you know, within hours, 48 hours. So you'll see our response too, where, you know, so
Yeah.
you'll at least be able to see what the concern was and what the city's response was.
I didn't realize I could do that.
I didn't either, so I'm not sure if someone could send out an email to the board, like pointing where that is, because sometimes I have trouble finding stuff
Yeah.
on the city
Yeah, give us
website.
I can
a
do
route map.
Yeah.
That's it, it's people stuff, I think it's cost.
Yeah,
It's called.
that would be good good to know.
Yeah.
That'd be fun to review that.
This on the Clearwater website?
Yeah. I think,
I sat on the St. Pete City Marina Board, and, you know, there were a lot of concerns there for boat owners that are there. And we always got those, and we considered them, and we made recommendations that, for the most part, were followed. A lot of it had to do with security and full-time security guards, and, you know, here we're just sort of in the dark.
well, I don't think you're in the dark. We don't have that many complaints.
Well, I lived through, I don't know, I guess, the mid-'80s, late '80s, when there were complaints about nighttime operations. And that, the neighborhoods they had a lot to say about it, and a lot of the people were very involved. And it led to the restrictions that are supposed to be in place now, an hour after sunset, and no run-ups or take-up. But
That's been changed. It's not an hour after.
it's 11 o'clock now? Well, it was 7, and no run-ups before 7 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah, that's.
or takeoffs, yeah. But there was no one to call, so they put the guard there. I assume he's still there, the overnight guy?
We have
Yeah,
it,
the little
yes.
guard shack.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And they gave him a cell phone, and all the neighborhoods got the cell number, and, so citizen input caused some positive changes for the betterment, for the safety of the Airpark, because we didn't have lights at that point. I'll never forget, if any of you remember Councilman Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he was an old pilot, and when we brought up that the light, if you clicked a certain frequency twice on your mic, it would turn the lights on. And he said, sitting on the dais, that that would never work, because he didn't know many private airplanes had a radio in them. Thank goodness the board got to tell him that they had, a lot of them have radios in them. That was in the 80s.
But yeah, I think that would be good, and even if there is no comments, just to know that there is no comments and nobody's specifically pointing anything out, I think is also helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because I keep those things, and, you know, when we have issues, because I'm not this person to solve them. You know, I sit here as the liaison, and I'm the one that gets all the complaints and problems brought to me first, so anybody that I can get to solve my problems, I'm all in.
Make your job easier.
It would.
The grumpies.
Yeah, let Mike, we will go talk about the security a little bit for Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I have overnight personnel there, and they're there anywhere between 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, working 8 or 9 hour shifts. We don't have a plan for them to be there. They stagger so they don't create a pattern, but they're there all night, every night. They check every hangar. They will drive and walk the fence line to look for holes or anything going on, and then they'll chart if somebody lands after 11 o'clock, and they call the police, and if there's a helicopter in the area, they chart that, and they're never ours. They're usually the sheriff's office or military aircraft, but they still put that in. Helicopter doing maneuvers by the Airpark, and you know, every once in a while the military likes to come over and they'll do some fake runs at the airport just to get their hours in. And I know that's a nuisance to some citizens, but we have no control over that.
Yeah, I know about them.
Yeah, so, but they're there every night, Monday through Sunday, so.
Is that a private company or is it?
It's ours, it's our employees. Yep, it's our employees.
And
Yeah.
the cameras.
We have new cameras, that was a part of that security upgrade last year.
Recorded cameras or just cameras?
They're recorded cameras, yes, and they hold for a certain period of time. So we have those brand new. When Hangar C gets completed, there'll be some cameras that go up on that, and then that,
You guys working on yesterday.
yep. And so then that project will be completed.
Now, has there ever been a major problem of trespassing at night though?
No,
Has it been,
Just-
even before all this was in place?
no, do not have a major problem with that. You know, we've had one crime, and since I've been here in 4.5 years, and that was somebody on the airfield that was committing the crime, so.
And what we did though you know, you talk about trespass, you know, everybody that has the airport has a card to get in at the gate. Well, you could come in your car with 5 people in the car. Nobody would know how many people are on the airport. So we put the security guard shack there. So when somebody comes in, Kelly comes in and she's got 2 kids and her husband and her lady friend and all these other people are coming. So they just say, yeah, Kelly's here with a car full, you know, just so you know that there's other people on the Airpark. Should there be an emergency? You know, how many people are on the Airpark that night? There was a crime. Somebody stole something. Well, so-and-so came with a car full of people, and these people, they were having a party in their hangar. You know, that's why we're interested in what's going on in these hangars at night when mishaps happen. Before, when we did have the problem, they were saying who's on the Airpark, so, you know, Barb can look at the card and say, 4 people came through the gate between this time and that time, and then witnesses come up, you have 20 people that, no, I was there. So we said, well, you gotta figure out how to best find out, you know, the Airpark's closed. So why do we have all these people there at night? Are they playing cards in their hangar? Are they doing something else in their hangar? So that's where we really tried to tighten things up like that.
My other question is, during the day, reason I asked this because I brought my son there for the Civil Air Patrol, or 3-day thing. And it was easy to come right in, and there was no check and balances as far as coming in and out of there. Now, I know you have the cameras.
What do you mean by coming in and out of there?
Well,
Into the terminal or
driving through.
How do you have a card to get
I
in?
had nothing. We drove right in where the Civil Air Patrol buildings are right here to the right.
That's
They're right there, but I'm saying we parked there, but I'm saying if anybody off the street could have came in and parked right there and just walked across, how far would they have got?
Okay, well, if you come in and you park in the parking lot, that's open to the public.
Right.
Once you get in the building, you know, they're gonna go right past our desk.
Right.
And then you get stopped there and asked, hi, can we help you? Where do you plan
Mm-hmm.
on going? We have cones lined up outside. We tell people, if you wanna bring your son and you wanna sit on the patio or the picnic table, you're welcome to do that. However, you can't go any further. You can't walk down on the field. If we or our line guys see anybody go down on the field and we don't know who they are, we drive up on the golf cart and question them and bring them back.
So it is a monitoring system in place
Absolutely,
where.
and they can't, like,
I'm
if you
just
come.
concerned the
Oh,
fact
no,
that. the
I'm
world
telling
we
you
live
the
in
way
now-
it works, right, so if you come into the Airpark and you park there, both gates are closed, unless you have a gate card, you're not getting in, unless you piggyback off of somebody, and that is really
Yeah.
forbidden.
Of course.
And our tenants will call me and say, hey, somebody followed me in.
Okay.
Well, I'll either look at the camera to see if it's somebody I know, because we're trying to put an end to that. I send it out in the newsletters all the time. They'll wave the card, you know, that's still not a good thing, you know, so, but believe me, we have a guy that's there every day cutting grass. If he sees anybody he doesn't know, he goes and questions them, so,
Glad to hear.
yeah.
And Bruce will tell you, being a commercial airline pilot, security is everybody's responsibility. So
Exactly.
these guys sitting out in the hangar see somebody they don't know.
They'll call
Believe me,
me.
they're calling it in, because
It's just the world that we live in nowadays, you know. I was just wondering because I live on the other side of Keene. I live on Greenlee. So when you talk about the military helicopters coming in at night or the sheriff department coming in just to fly over, we experience it all the time. So I was always wondering, with the same way with the golf course there too, because I've seen kids go across the golf course at night. So I was wondering, I said, you know, my guy on this advisory board said, I need to ask about that part. How good is that security saying, get on air base and somebody end up doing something to a plane, vandalizing or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear.
We do, it's fenced all around, what is it, an 8-foot fence?
yes, it is
Yeah,
an
that
8-foot
has
fence.
it, and so, and that's why he goes the perimeter, so we're there during the day, you know, my guy's there till 9 or 9:30, and then the night guard's there,
Great.
so.
And they're mobile, and like I said, they don't create patterns. So they might go this way one time to start around, they'll go the other way the next time to start around.
And it happens all the time, somebody will call and say, hey, I saw somebody by this plane, I don't know who they are, we'll go question them, and, you know, oh, my friend told me to come in and check his plane or whatever, you know, we monitor all that. Not to say it's perfect, but, I mean, it's very, I mean,
Listen, good.
I think we have one of the most secure general aviation airports in Florida, honestly,
Good.
so.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
So real quick, before we continue our discussion that Ed mentioned, I just want to see, because we had some citizens come in the back, if any of you guys were here to make a comment at all, just listening in? Okay. All right, so we will continue on with our conversation of things that should be brought up at the council meeting. Another thing that I'm going to bring up again, especially with hearing about this change of the, over $200,000 in the budget, like, I didn't even know anything about it. And again, I think that's something that, even though it was just shifted versus gotten rid of, that, again, there should be some better communication of things that the city is looking at that concern the Airpark and the Airpark board, because I feel like that is what we are here for, is to kind of hear what the city is wanting to do and be able to provide some sort of feedback as a board as to, okay, well, now we understand. The paper wasn't that clear, but if this would have been brought up, then we could have known it just got shifted versus, done
And
away
I'll
with.
apologize for that. If you remember at our last board meeting, I told you that I had the meeting with the FAA liaisons that do our grants the week after our meeting, and I said, we'll discuss it August 4th. So that's when all these things really became in stone, is that meeting. So for that, I apologize.
Well, and I mean, it's not even just that, because going back in time to like the Landings Golf Course, when the city was wanting to just get rid of that and make a whole bunch of buildings, that was again something that wasn't brought to the Airpark board's attention, and I think that could have been a potential safety issue. And looking at the very small footprint of the Airpark currently, and the golf course is at least an out if an emergency does occur, and if we would have had more buildings taking away all of that property, I mean, it could have been an issue in the future. But things like that, again, I think there needs to be a little bit better communication between the city and the board that they want to have to advise them on Airpark things, just so that we would be able to have mentioned that at the beginning before it even went through who knows how much the city had to spend on all of the campaigning and whatever else they did to try to get that change to occur and it being on the ballot and everything, versus we could have maybe informed them at the beginning of, hey, here's some things you probably want to consider and why this maybe isn't a good idea. And they were looking at it as a money thing of bringing money into the city. Well, as we hear from Barb every meeting, there's a super long wait list. So if anything, the Landings property, I think, should be given back to the Airpark. It is historic Airpark property, and, have room to build more hangars over there, which could bring in a significant amount of money to the city as well. So just things like that, that will definitely be something that I am bringing up again. We did have a council member that came to our last meeting here, and I did make mention of that to her as well, but bringing it up to the whole
No, I think
council.
you make a very good point there, Kelly, because obviously those decisions are done at a level well above our pay grade. Our pay is very low. But that doesn't mean there couldn't be some reasonable advisory situation. That's what we theoretically are supposed to be doing. So that's a good point.
Just as a point of information, I don't feel comfortable sitting on this board not knowing what's going on at the Airpark.
Yeah.
If citizens make comments, we don't get them. I have an email that went from a couple of users, I guess, or maybe neighbors of the Airpark, that went to Mayor Hibbard and congratulating him on getting involved at their request to make the recent changes at the Airpark on the helicopters. First I read about the helicopter thing was when I got this. And that, by the way, is public record if you email an elected official. It cannot be marked private. That's how I got this. So I think what she's asking for and what we're all kind of hinting at is give us something to do. Because the basic message I'm getting is we can't do anything because it's an FBO and it's leased, and I don't know, I guess once a year we go in and say, well, we met 4 times and we approved the minutes.
I will say, I think we've been more effective than that over the years than, not because I've been on the board, but I've been a witness to it. I think we've made positive contributions to the master plan, I can tell you
Well,
that.
yeah, my judgment's a little quick. This is my second meeting,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah. No, I think part of what
Yeah.
you're saying is exactly dead on.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that,
yeah,
that we've had some substantive work to do as well, on the master lease, the master plan, and
Yep.
a few things like that over the years, so it hasn't,
I'll just
yeah.
Yeah,
keep
and-
having
But I
lunch.
agree.
yeah, Bruce is exactly right.
If Mayor Hipper gets an email about the Airpark, it'd be nice for us to have access to that on an easy basis.
And I'm not privileged to all the mayor's emails. I'm sure he gets them from
Oh,
everybody.
yeah, I'm certain.
But,
He's an elected
I
official.
can't comment
Every
on
citizen
that,
has
but
his
I
address.
do share things of importance. And I'm going to make a note to all emails, whether they're important or not, just so you see the complexity of inquiries we get. Most of them are just,
Concerning the Airpark,
pardon me?
concerning the Airpark.
Yes, concerning the Airpark, yeah.
Well, just to make a joke about it, I'd go have lunch with Bruce Kaiser and come up with an agenda to keep us busy for a month. But he's a good customer there. You know him.
Yes, he doesn't have an airplane there right now,
I appreciate
but he has.
the help you can give us.
But yeah, I think that's a major talking point, even like what you just mentioned, Bruce, about with the changes to the hangar, and we kind of didn't hear the why of what happened, and we may have provided feedback on the master plan and knowing that a hangar was going here, and it's progressing, but then, we heard an original plan of what it was gonna look like, and then things have changed, and I think it's just kind of keeping us abreast of what is going on, and if changes are done, and not necessarily that we're going to say anything about it, but I've been involved in other various boards or advisory panels, and I feel like they're always given way more information than what they may want, but then they have it available to kind of, refer back to if needed, and I think that's kind of missing from this advisory board. So did we have any other specific items that we'd want to touch base on for those of you that are aware of things? I'm not sure if the newer members
one question.
may have anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Since I'm new to the board and everything, if I wanted to come over and you want to just, walk me around sometime?
Just looking all around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just give you a call sometime. Oh, you there on the weekends also, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
Mostly I'm there Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, okay.
About 8:30 till.
You can come down to the hangar and see the neatest airplane on the field.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's
All right.
awesome.
All right, thank you.
So any
You might include, I think it's always good for the Airpark I know, at least I'm in favor of the Airpark, and maybe not everybody else necessarily is, but just like Barb brought up about the Young Eagle event and the open house events and the neighborhood interaction sort of events that are a positive push. I think that's worthy of mention. Because some of the people on the board, I guarantee, are like, I know there's an Airpark out there on Hercules, and I know that we get noise complaints about it. Other than that, can't we get rid of that stupid thing, then we don't have to worry about it?
Explain to them what the Young Eagles.
Oh, yeah,
is and
no,
what they
right,
do,
that's
and
good.
Also explain what you do with the Skies for National Initiative.
Okay, that's a good point too. And I should have included in my little introduction, I am the current president of Experimental Aircraft Association, Chapter 282. And a lot of people here at the Airpark and into the city that are members of our chapter. And 3 times a year, we have what's called a Young Eagles Rally, sponsored by EAA National up there in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And children 8 through 17 get an introduction to aviation. They sign up. There's a way to do that. The parent signs a flight waiver, and they get a ride in an airplane.
Yep.
Either try to get them in a flying seat, you know, the right seat on my airplane, but that's not always possible. But they get a 15, 18-minute ride in an airplane, they get told how ailerons work and elevators and things like that. And it's just a great introduction to flying. And I guess EAA National, we've flown more than 2 million young eagles over the years. Some of them have turned into professional pilots or private pilots that just have a good time with it. The program is very interesting. There's a commercial firm that if a young eagle wants to start pursuing a license, then they can actually take their ground school that they would pay $200 for an online course, and Sporties will actually give it to them, and EAA will pay for their first flight lesson if they so choose. So that's a fun little program. And then about every 6 weeks, I host National Aviation Academy. That's an airframe and power plant mechanics school down at PIE. But they don't get any introduction to general aviation. And so I've kind of gotten into a routine, and I coordinate with Barb on this, and I'll have like 30 of the students will come out. I meet with them and explain to them a little bit how the general aviation works, the certified side, the amateur built, experimental amateur built side. We walk down to the EAA hangar, show them the airplane that's under construction down there. We walk to Jeff's Bender's maintenance facility. Most of his mechanics are graduates of National Aviation Academy, which is kind of fun. And we just stand outside and I just kind of show them the scope of what they do. Then we walk down the ramp with me kind of herding sheep a little bit as we walk down the ramp, kind of keep them away from people's airplanes, but they get to see a introduction again to twins and lights and singles and various airplanes. I walk them down to my airplane and they take a tour of that. If friends of mine are open, we will tour those as well. And then they get a good little introduction to how general aviation works.
Bruce, now, with that program, it sounds great. I never heard of that Young Eagles class before. Is that knowledge to like put on the website, the park's website, and under my Clearwater website? Because that's something that could be brought up to the council. Say, hey, look, you want to have that communication with the community, and that
Yep.
getting along. That'd be great, to, to
That would be-
publicize that.
We could coordinate that, or chapter.
You make it a public notice though, too?
We make it public. It's funny, we used to try to do through the paper and all that, and we found there's this website that's a registration website has been wonderfully successful. So if somebody kind of here's something about Young Eagle, you can Google that, and it'll take you right to this. It says, hey, the Clearwater's going to have one next February on the 7th of February, and here's how you sign up. And if you've got information, I get a phone call. Yeah,
I think it'd be good to give it to the council to let them know.
It's getting fairly common. I think kids in high school or junior or middle school, whatever they call it nowadays, I'm dating myself here, hear about it and they want to do it.
Can I make a suggestion on it? As a guy who works in the media, I think the city should perhaps put out a media alert as they do for other activities in the city if you're going to have a big event at the airport like that. And make it, then all the TV stations will get it.
But yeah, we've actually done some of that over the.
Your
We used
youth,
to do it, to be honest, we've been getting enough people signing up lately that we haven't pursued the press releases through the Tampa Bay Times and the radio and stuff.
How many?
Because we've had enough people.
70-something kids?
Yeah, we did. I had 79 registered, I think it was. We ended up flying upper 50s. I never heard the final count, like 58, 59.
And didn't you guys, CAA, give somebody a scholarship?
Oh, and now that's another interesting thing. Yeah, we've got this Henry Marshall, who's a member of the Civil Air Patrol there, and the Ray Foundation, whoever Mr. Ray is, pumps $1.5 million into the Experimental Aircraft Association. They administer, and anyway, we applied as a chapter, got awarded a scholarship of $10,000, and he's in the midst. He's soloed. He hasn't finished his training yet. The hard part is anymore trying to get even a private pilot license for $10 grand it's iffy, you know, it used to be that was a piece of cake, you could get it done for 10 or less. It's a little harder to do now, but anyway, we're administering that, we mentor it that, and we funnel the money, we get the money to our, and then release it to the flight school as the milestones are made. But that's another thing that EAA contributes to the community a little bit of.
Whether somebody participates in it or not, it's a positive thing for the airport.
Absolutely.
Exactly, and giving that communication back to the community, because
Shows the benefit.
exactly, people driving down Keene and down Hercules just see land, and every now and then they see a plane going landing. They know nothing else about it. The community doesn't know.
That's
I never knew about this, and we've lived now since 2014 here. We went to one open house that the Civil Air Patrol, you guys were all there, everybody was combined together there. But we went to that, and one of our best friends went to Civil Air Patrol, got his license. He's now Billy's now going to University of Idaho, I believe it is, and he's working towards getting his commercial license. But that's all I know, and I live right on the other side of Keene. So this is the information. If it's something but flyers or in the mailbox, whatever, those little things like that will get the community more involved and more understanding, and not getting as one or two people with a complaint that you.
One of the big goals of the FBO's open house every year.
Right.
Is to try to get people to put airplanes on display.
Exactly.
And we usually set up a EAA information table.
Mm-hmm.
But you're absolutely right.
And we haven't had that 2 years
It's
now.
been a little.
Yeah, and I understand it. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
Neighborhoods Day is another one.
Yes.
We try to choose the neighborhoods right there around the Airpark for those inputs and such.
And not to get off your subject and everything, but a question I have is the flight path that comes, the landing flight. Okay, so what I understand is taking off and landing is the same direction, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it'll change depending on the wind. which
Depending on
way
the
you're
wind and
going,
weather
yeah.
and so forth. What is, and I know y'all mentioned it earlier and I didn't catch it. What is the last time a plane can land at the airport? Hours. What hour? When? 11 o'clock. And in the morning, it's 7. Okay. That's just aircraft. That's just airplanes, not helicopters. That's both?
But you have to remember with PIE being so close, and like they already mentioned with sheriff office and the military.
Yeah, I know them.
fly
I know them. Believe me, I've seen them do that, especially the Coast Guard.
PIE has multiple
Yeah.
flight schools as well, and they'll fly over.
Yeah,
Right. So the airport is open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
okay.
It's a city ordinance. There's no takeoffs or landings between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Should anybody land after 11 when the night guard's there, as Mike
Yeah,
specified, he calls the police come and question them. Then I end up calling the people and educating them,
Yeah.
can't do that. When those hours changed, you said about in the old days, we used to be closed 1 hour after sunset. Not closed, but no takeoffs were permitted 1 hour after sunset. We had a big meeting with city council and then a big meeting with the neighborhoods. When we extended our runway back in 2014, that's when the hours got changed. And, we had probably I don't think you were there for that. We probably had 75 or 80 people from the community come to a meeting. The large majority of people were on board with it. The ones that had any questions, there's going to be flight training at 11 o'clock at night. Well, none of that happened. That 11 o'clock thing you mentioned, Mr. Kaiser, he was one of the people instrumental in getting those hours changed to 11 because at that time he had an airplane and he used to fly to Texas all the time.
Yep.
And when he used to get back, sometimes 10:30, he would have to land at PIE and then bring his airplane over the next day. If we have 2 or 3 people land that late,
It's not.
and at that, the landings are quiet. It's the
11 o'clock
takeoffs.
is a problem. We
Right.
get, like you said, 1 or 2.
Yeah,
maybe
and
in a weekend.
people get delayed because of weather or whatever. That just gives them a little bit more time to get in, get their airplane put to bed. But, when we first extended those hours, we had a lineman there till 11. We kept a binder. We had to notate every landing that happened. And in 6 months, we might have had 6. So Now the FBO is open till 9, and then the night guard's there after 9. And again, we might have 1 or 2 people land that late. And now sometimes the flight school, because they have to get night currency and so forth, they might have a few more. But there's really no training going on at those hours of the night, right? And you know, the 7 o'clock takeoff is firm. There's no exceptions to that. Nobody goes earlier than that, so.
And what's the ceiling cap for helicopters? How low can they fly?
How low can they fly?
They're allowed.
500 feet is about the lowest, and of course, remember, when they're coming into land,
Yeah,
they do
of
get
course.
lower.
Yeah, I'm just, over neighborhoods, I'm just thinking, because I know over our house, he's doing maybe 5, maybe a little under, because and I guess he has a student or whatever, because it's coming Keene, over the neighborhood, come across Keene, then come into the airport. And sometimes, it's not often, but sometimes we've
When you
noticed.
come by the airport, I'll show you. We have big pictures of the pattern on the wall.
Okay, that'd be great.
Show you what the pattern is.
I just want to know.
Absolutely.
I've seen it from the outside too much, and now I'm happy to be on the board, and
I'll
I'm,
be very happy to show you around and explain. And we have cards at the counter that explain our hours and all that. And also, we have our automated weather observation system. And at the end of that, you'll hear my voice explaining what the hours are, so that anybody that's traveling in, maybe they're not familiar, they're going to listen to that weather report, and they're going to hear, oh, I can't land there after 11, you know, so then they'll go over to St. Pete and land. That was one of the things the city wanted on there when we got that AWAS. You know, the AWAS tells them the weather, the ceiling, the cloud heights and all that. And that's really important to pilots coming into the airport. And then we can add that, any kind of special message at the end about our hours or whatever, so. Oh, and it's also published in every publication. Everything that pilots look at, those hours are in there. So if anybody lands after 11 and says they didn't know, they just didn't do any research, because it's all out there, so.
Did you
Yeah,
have
everybody
questions?
uses ForeFlight now, and ForeFlight has all that information. ForeFlight is a tool for pilots to use for flight planning and navigating
Yeah,
and
before she
everything,
sits back
so.
down, that's just what I'm asking. Okay, one more.
Yes.
For you and for Ed and the other board members, I just want to make a statement of where I stand on this deal. I'm the guy that, of the 5 members, one of them has to be from an immediately adjacent neighborhood or affected by the flight patterns.
We appreciate that.
So, but having spent 22 years as a large sailboat owner and scrambling for marina space, and because I have family members that are involved in general aviation, they fly out of Albert Whitted on the Ron Mathat's FBO down there. I'm all for the airport. I will challenge and ask, but I'd like for you guys not to, just consider me the loyal opposition. I'm here and I'm going to ask questions, but I'm all for that airport,
Right.
guys, because
And it's good to have somebody from the neighborhoods too, because we can let you know how important the airport is to the infrastructure of the airport in the Tampa Bay area. All the planes that are at the airport, if we weren't at the Airpark, if we weren't there, they would have to operate out of PIE or Tampa, which would overload those airports to the point where they would probably have to cancel commercial flights because of it. So we play an important role in that whole infrastructure. In addition to that, you may not be aware, the airport is at 71 feet elevation.
I will.
All the other airports in Tampa Bay are at sea level. So we have things like, we have a letter of agreement with the Coast Guard. When there's going to be an impending storm or hurricane, they bring their fuel trucks over and put them at the Airpark to prevent them from getting underwater. And you know, if they needed, God forbid, to bring in supplies, our airport is the one they would use. When it was Hurricane Irma, we were still open when Tampa Airport and St. Pete was closed. We had many airplanes come in to pick up people to evacuate them. Even though the storm ended up being really a nothing thing, you know, we still were operating when everybody else was closed. So we play an important role in all that. It's more than just people having fun in airplanes. A lot more, so.
I know that. Good to hear.
Okay?
Did anybody else have any questions for Barb? before she steps down? Okay, thank you very much, Barb. Okay, so did we have any other items that anybody wants to bring up? I think I have some pretty good ones so far, but still open to any other suggestions.
Me too.
Okay, so I'll just kind of confirm some of the things that we touched on, and I think the biggest thing we came up with was communication, making sure there's better communication between the council and the city and the board itself, and also highlighting the neighborhood involvement of different activities that go on, Young Eagles open house, and the NAA tour that you do over there as well. And looking into putting some of these announcements on the city website to try to get some more neighborhood information out there about what is going on if people want to participate themselves. And maybe talking a little bit about the Airpark history, because you said it's kind of a new council. Maybe they're not as familiar, that maybe they don't know the Airpark has been there for a really long time, and even knowing that it was larger in the past. So just kind of maybe giving a little brief update on talking about the history. And I will go through these meeting minutes to see if there's anything else to specifically pull out of there. But then Ed, you had mentioned with this Division II Advisory Board being written in 1980 and not really speaking about that there's an FBO lease now. Is this something that maybe we want to bring up with the council? Maybe they want to update the language in this?
Yeah, that's up for discussion, and I really, like I said, I stumbled on that when I was prepping for the meeting, you know, just reading things, and like everything else, you know, things change.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an instance where we have a third party, the FBO, that, you know, is in between the council and the board. So, yeah, there may be, I don't know if we bring it up in your discussion now since we just talked about it, but it's something that I'm gonna bring up.
Okay.
You know, with the clerk's office, and it'll make its way to the council. It's nothing, I don't think that, I wouldn't think it would be a highlight of your presentation, because we're talking about, you know, the year in review and such, but it is an important topic, yes.
Okay, I guess just as long as someone's bringing it up, but if you have it covered,
Yes.
that would be good, because.
I just brought it up because I thought it was, you know, important for you
Yeah,
guys
'cause
to
I know
realize
the
that.
lease is up for renewal, I guess, next year, the year
Next
after,
year,
something,
December,
so, and the city's planning on maintaining,
Yes.
having an FBO lease, so, okay. Did that about cover it, or did I miss out on any key items that anybody wanted to make sure that I covered?
Good.
And then Kelly, if you want to, you know, have your general outline, I'll share it with the board, and they can comment back to me, and then I'll give you all of their comment, if any, and then you can, you know, on the 18th be there. And I don't know, is there anybody planning on being there besides Kelly? I know it's for the new members, you're brand new, but we committed to this in January, and when the clerk's office asked me if we still wanted to do it, I'm so tired of postponing everything, I said, yes, we will do it.
Okay,
The 19th,
18th,
18th at 6 PM.
I'll take a look.
I'll be there.
okay. I'll be there, and, you know, because there's generally just some questions here. It's in here, it's in this room, yes. I'm talking like we're somewhere else. It'll be in this room, yes.
We get relatively in the early part of the agenda.
Yeah, it'll be at the beginning,
Okay.
so within the first 10 minutes of the meeting, I think it will be.
Some of us get on the agenda item about 9:30.
No, we won't do that to you. And it's just a 5 to 10 minute, you know, and then there'll be Q&A. But, you know, just be prepared to just talk for 5 minutes or so, and then some Q&A
Okay.
like that.
All right, so do we have any other items that we have not discussed that any board members wanted to bring up at all? Yeah? Okay, anybody from the city or Barb, anything else that you wanted to bring up we haven't discussed?
I'm good.
Okay, then I think I'm gonna, do I have to make a motion to adjourn? I can't remember if I make a motion or I just adjourn.
We can just
Okay.
adjourn.
All right, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hey, you did that really well.
I'm not gonna whack it.
Thanks, Kelly.
So I wanted to see, because you said your brother has a Pilatus, right?
He doesn't have a Pilatus, he flies when they belong. The guy down at